Now, despite ongoing legal battles challenging the legitimacy of Nigeria's President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the country's Information Minister Lai Mohammed revealed that the May 29 inauguration ceremony will proceed as scheduled, even as court proceedings continue. Recall that the chairman of the Presidential Transition Council, PTC, and Secretary to Government of the Federation SGF, Boss Mustapha, had previously disclosed that the transition process is on course, and all efforts have been made to ensure that there is a smooth and peaceful formal transfer of power to the new president on May 29.
Meanwhile, the All Progressive Congress, APC, on Thursday said President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu is resting in Europe ahead of his inauguration on May the 29th. Controversies had followed the announcement of the APC candidate as winner of the February 25th presidential election, with opposition candidates filing petitions invalidating both his candidacy and victory at the polls. INEC has insisted that it declared Tinubu winner of the election, considering that he scored the highest valid votes cast at the elections and at least 25% of the votes cast in not less than 2/3 of the states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. Now, joining us on this discussion today on the conversation, we have Seun and Raymond, Osho, a political analyst. We also have Kingsley, Chime, a political analyst, and Dr. Dayo, Kayode, a political analyst. So one welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on the conversation. I'd like to start with you, Kingsley. Now, Kingsley, despite claims that Bola Tinubu's victory is unconstitutional, and we know that there's currently a challenge in the presidential election petition panel, what do you make of this statement that his inauguration will go ahead?
Well, thank you so much, Gbenga and Rita, for having me on your program this evening. And good evening, viewers. First and foremost, let me begin by making a caveat that my position this evening is actually personal, and should not. And I also recall that the matter is presently in court, so I should expect some level of restraint in my analysis of the pending matters in court. Having laid this background, let me begin by saying that ordinarily, one would assume that a candidate who was purportedly declared winner of the 2023 general presidential election, should be inaugurated without doubt. But this 2023 general election, particularly the presidential election, is one election too many. It has posed some serious issues of concern that the judiciary must have to contend with and have a position one way or the other. Nobody is contesting the fact that May 29th ordinarily should be sacrosanct. But what people are saying in effect is that the process that brought in, that declared APC candidate winner was did not reflect the intentions or intendment of the provisions of the law, particularly the Constitution. That is why you see some concerns from the opposition political parties why APC should be inaugurated. Without prejudice to the right of the INEC to declare any candidate winner, and for the inauguration to go on, it is important to say that we all understand the political terrain in Nigeria, particularly as it relates to presidential elections. More often than not, when a particular candidate is declared winner and eventually inaugurated, that will be the end of any pending petition in court. But the question now is that whether that petition can be dispensed with within the few days or months we have to the inauguration, to determine who actually indeed won that election. Because once the person is declared, is inaugurated, take it from me that will be the end of that petition. I'm not trying to...
But we've seen, Barrister Chime, we've seen situations where state governors have, the Supreme Court has overturned their verdict, and they've been removed from office despite of being sworn in. But I do understand that in the history of Nigeria, we've never had the Supreme Court overturn the win at the presidential level. So do you think the inauguration basically shuts down the door on that happening?
Well, I would say yes and no. I'll have my reasons. First and foremost, that something has never been done before doesn't mean it shouldn't be done or can never be done. Otherwise, the rest of the world will move on and Nigeria will be left behind. We've seen it happen in Kenya, we've seen it happen in Ghana. So there's nothing uncommon about that. If the Supreme Court or indeed the Election Petition Tribunal will be able to expedite the pending petitions to come out with a definite position, so that whoever is declared the winner of that election and indeed inaugurated would have a free reign. But having said that, we have to bear in mind that 2023 presidential election is indeed unprecedented. Unprecedented, because we've never had it this way before, and the courts, particularly the Supreme Court, may have cause to make a pronouncement on the provisions of Section 134 sub 2 of the Constitution as to whether any candidates who may be declared winner and indeed inaugurated must have 25% in the Federal Capital Territory. This has never been pronounced upon by any court in Nigeria. So it's unprecedented. And that is why I feel that the judiciary must set the pace. They must, be able to understand the mood of the country and the mood of the society. Much as I understand the legal implications and the burden of proof for you to establish electoral violence and irregularities for the courts to upturn the pronouncement of the INEC. But the courts must be able to determine the constitutional question which some of the opposition parties have raised. If that, in a way, one way or the other, will be able to affect the declaration being made by INEC. One of which is that whether the APC candidates who was declared winner can indeed be declared winner in the light of Section 134 sub 2.
Okay.
Of course, it is common knowledge that APC did not score 25% of the votes in FCT.
All right, Barrister Chime, we're going to go deeper. We're going to go deeper into all these issues that you've raised. But first of all, I would like to have Dr. Kayode give his own view of all of this. And you talked about the mood in the country. I mean, it's up to a month to this May 29 inauguration, and various groups supporting the president-elect have warned opposing parties from truncating the inauguration ceremony. From all we are having, the Election Petition Tribunal, do you still have concerns over this reports of interim government that we're hearing?
You see, in as much as the election has not been concluded because the cases are already in the court, people are now saying the issues that are being raised by the opposition parties are issues that can be resolved even within 7 days. For instance, there have been precedents as regards the issue of 25% votes in Abuja. A case in mind was that between Obasanjo and Buhari, when Buhari was in his former party. What am I saying? The Supreme Court then did say that there is need after winning 25% in 2/3 of the states, you must also win 25% in Abuja. I wonder why some people are now saying Abuja cannot be seen as the golden goal. It's not the issue. It's about constitutionality. And I'm very sure that those people that put Abuja in that particular purview there have seen Abuja as the seat of government, whereby all interests within the federation are being represented. And again, Abuja as is not having the status of a state. So are you now going to carve out Abuja from the character that makes Nigeria? If you are being asked anywhere, how many states is Nigeria composed of? Even a kindergarten student, we say Nigeria has 36 states and Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. So that means Abuja is on its own. So when we're now talking about this 25%, aside from having 25% in two-thirds of the states, you must still have 25% in Abuja. And let me quickly state this. If the cases are not being dispensed of on or before 29th of May, then tell me, what is the legality? What is the legality in anybody being sworn in as the next president of Nigeria? So what next? If anybody doesn't want an aberration, if anybody doesn't want this democracy to be truncated, then the judiciary must be asked, okay, to quickly sort out these cases so that Nigeria can move forward.
All right, Dr. Kayode, you raised a very important point, and I want Barrister Chime to actually put his view on this, because what INEC is saying that, according to provisions of the 1999 Constitution, the FCT has the status of a state and ought to be recognized as one of the states of the Federation. Now, going by the legal prospect, because INEC is stating from the 1999 Constitutions, what are your thoughts of this? Is this still in line with what the Constitution has?
Rita, like I said at the outset, I wouldn't want to make a definite I wouldn't want to take a definite position on matters already before the court of competent jurisdiction. What I would say is that Section 134 sub 2 is clear and unambiguous. It is left for the Election Petition Tribunal to determine the implication of and, whether to define and disjunctively or conjunctively. It is left for them. But I think it's very clear for even like my colleague on the other side has said, to understand. So we'll leave that at the Supreme Court or the Court of Tribunal to decide one way or the other. But the point we are making, in effect, is that much as we understand the burden of proof for you to establish irregularities in an election, the Supreme Court actually, or the Election Petition Tribunal, had the discretion and jurisdiction to determine summarily and interpret the position of Section 134 sub 2 and indeed Section 35. Some of the opposition political parties have raised some issues with respect to the qualification of the vice presidential candidate and indeed the elected candidate of APC, whether he is qualified to contest as a vice presidential candidate, having been while being a senator of the Federal Republic. So these are preliminary questions that the courts may have to decide one way or the other. And what we are saying is that once courts, in its wisdom, decide one way or the other, it may have effect on the remaining leg of the petition. Because if the court decides in its wisdom that for any candidate to be declared a winner in a presidential election, you must have 25%. And it is apparent that the declared political party did not meet that threshold. Now, the question will now be, what will be the consequential orders that the court will make? So what people are saying, of course, if you watch the mood of the country, it is that of disenchantment. It is that of disillusionment. It is that of despair. People are worried because we all are members of Nigeria. We are all in Nigeria, and we understand the political terrain where we operate. What we are saying is that this is the baton has been moved from the electoral system to the court, to judiciary. The judiciary must stand up at this occasion to make a definite pronouncement. The fact that it has never been done before does not mean it can never be done.
Thank you, Barrister Chime. I would like to move to Dr. Kayode at this point. Now, Dr. Kayode, President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu reiterated his commitment to rebuilding the country and renewing the hope of the average Nigerian. Now, looking at the country as it stands, and Barrister Chime did mention the mood of disenchantment. Not a lot of people are happy. We've had elections in the past where an incumbent lost, and he actually picked up the phone to congratulate the winner. We didn't have to go to election petition tribunal, but what we're seeing now is a highly divisive country. So how does the president-elect hope to bring about this hope of the Nigerian people, renewed hope, and also unites a deeply fractured and divided country?
Yeah, you see, already when you take a good assessment of the feelings of Nigerians presently, there is no departure from what Barrister Chime had said. Already, there's a kind of a truth gap between the people and the government. And the activities of INEC in this last election has widened that gap. And between you and me, the only institution left in Nigeria now to ensure a kind of a closure of that gap is the judiciary. INEC on its own, by violating its own guidelines, principles, and the electoral law, had widened it. People are now more disillusioned about that entity called Nigeria because of what happened this last election. Are you aware how many states that supplementary elections are going to take place by tomorrow? It has never happened before. Since 1999. It has never happened before. And people became more disappointed in this INEC when you now look at the level of preparedness, coupled with the amount of money spent on preparing for this particular election. Now, if you are now coming and now saying, yes, you are declaring a particular candidate the winner of the election, and whoever is not satisfied should go to court. What does that portend for the future of our nation? What does that portend for the coming elections? What does that portend for the professionals that are now jackpine from the nation, from the country? You can now see that, listen, there is nothing that Nigeria needs now other than to put our acts right by ensuring that people's mandates are not being allowed to be wished away for just any reason. Now, look at this. The electoral guideline stipulated that results of the elections will be transmitted right from the polling unit. Did we see that? It also is stipulated that the IREF will be showing the results on time. Did we see that? Even those results were not posted until days, if not weeks, after the elections have been concluded by INEC. But did we see that? Even at the National Collation Center, if you will remember, some opposition parties were saying, look, these things have not been done. This thing needs to be done before you can declare this election conclusive. And INEC chairman said, okay, let us go over. When we come back, we'll resolve these issues. When they resumed from that break, what happened? He announced the winner, even at around 4 a.m. while Nigeria was sleeping. What has that portended for this nation?
Okay, Dr. Kayode, on that issue,
kind of thinking do you want Nigerians to be happy?
On that issue, Dr. Kayode, I'm going to bring out what INEC said on that issue. Dr. Kayode, if you can hear me, still on that issue of the IREF portal. Now, in response to all of this, INEC said that uploading election results to the IREF portal is not a condition precedent to the declaration of the winner of the election under the Electoral Act. What do you have to say to that? Because the INEC has responded saying that this is not a precedent for the election result.
Between you and me, Rita, was that statement by INEC chairman, was it right? Was it a right statement? Then let us go to the electoral law of 2022, as signed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Muhammadu Buhari. What does he say? Let us go to the electoral law and then read it out. And then let Nigerians, let international observers now come on with their own interpretation of what electoral law of 2022 says. In fact, the statement of INEC chairman, for me, is just an afterthought. He wasn't talking from the electoral law which he co-designed. Because those electoral laws, those guidelines were stated based on the new things that INEC chairman brought on board for this particular election. He brought up the issue of beavers, and some people were saying, no, because of communication, this, because of the network issue in the country, this. I was among those that supported him. I was among those that even sensitized and educated Nigerians that, listen, don't get disenchanted about this, our nation, this time around, because what INEC chairman is bringing on board is going to move our nation forward 20 years. But it's so unfortunate that at the end of the day, what are we saying? It amazes people like me that had supported INEC chairman from the beginning to now find out at the tail end of the match, now shifting the goalpost. Is that how games are being played? Let us look at this. When there's a competition between two football clubs, there are rules and regulations to guide it.
Dr. Kayode, from all you're saying, there's still lots of issues.
It's time to shift the goalpost during the match.
Dr. Kayode,
among the referees and the supporters club, what do you think will happen? I don't want Nigeria to go to that kind of a situation. So the judiciary must stand up to its own duties at this present time of our nation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kayode. There are still lots of issues pending the inauguration ceremony on May 29th, and we wait to see how this pans out, especially at the Election Petition Tribunal. Thank you so much, Barrister Kingsley, Chime, and Dr. Dayo, for sharing your views on this issue. Thank you.